One, which I'll say very simply, I think the rapid acceleration we saw in the adoption of video calling has a much bigger significance to business and marketers than we've currently acknowledged. In that the fact that, don't get me wrong, this would have happened anyway, but it would have taken 15 years. Okay, the gradual shift of things from physical to virtual in terms of B2B communication would have happened, but it would have happened much, much more slowly. And the fact that the world's had a crash course in Zoom and to some extent has reached a new equilibrium is of huge importance to B2B marketers. It's of huge importance to an ad agency, for example. And I don't think we're discussing the implications nearly enough. You know, this is in some ways, if you're a professional services business, this is as important as the internet in some ways. I also think that we will come out of this. It will dramatically vary one sector to another, one business sector to another. But I think you'll probably see, an increase in the stature of marketing. And the reason I say that is that when you have very, very rapid and simultaneous change in behavior, every business question ultimately boils down to being a behavioral question, a psychological question. It's a marketing question. You know, in times of stability, what tends to happen is that businesses make business decisions not based on a deeper appreciation or insight into human needs. They simply look at what people bought last year and the year before, and they extrapolate the trends. They see essentially, you know, sales patterns as a guide to, future behavior. And then they also use economics to an extent as a model for human behavior, and they use market research. Now, I think, you know, the worst mistake you can make when the world changes very dramatically, and this is partly to quote Gerd Gigerenzer, the worst mistake you can make is to optimize on the past. If you treat the past as a guide to the future and you optimize your business around that without considering how the expression of deep set human needs might manifest itself under completely new conditions, you're heading for a bust if you do that. So I would hope that the stature of marketing and behavioral science and business psychology and all those areas should be, if business knows what's good for it, significantly elevated by the pandemic. Ultimately, I think a lot of business problems are actually marketing problems in disguise. And what the pandemic forces people to do elsewhere in the organization is to admit to that fact. You know, people in business spend an awful lot of time pretending that behavior is a kind of engineering like Newtonian physics problem, and it's nothing of the kind. So, for example, I mean, it's very, very dangerous to extrapolate your business's fortunes from looking at the average, because what you'll see is in times of disruption and disturbance, the average becomes a less and less reliable guide, because generally behavior becomes more extreme in both directions. So, you know, extravagances may become more extravagant, cost savings may become more dramatic. It's not safe to kind of look at the aggregate and try and derive information from that. Because just as you had the lipstick boost after the 2008 financial crisis, there are certain sectors that will do very, very well. I have to say travel and entertainment, business travel and entertainment particularly, I remain fairly pessimistic about. I wish I weren't, but I can't see any way in which what you might call this, previous patterns of business behavior, I don't see them returning to normal any day soon. And I felt rather pessimistic saying it. Interestingly, Robert Crandall, who is probably the god of the airline business, former chief executive of American Airlines, he says the same thing. He says business travel ain't coming back. And I rather fear he's right.